All right, welcome back, AB Sets. This is part two. We're going to keep going. We're on page 2 of the notes. So we're going to talk about problems with sampling. Anytime you take a sample, there are things that can go wrong. And so we're going to try to minimize these by using good sampling techniques, but there are still some things that can happen. Okay. So the first thing, under coverage, where some groups in the population are left out of the process of choosing the sample. Okay, so that means they weren't even an option to collect them. Non-response, an individual chosen for the sample can't be contacted or does not cooperate. So if they were selected to be in the sample but you cannot contact them or they refuse to answer your survey or whatever, that's non-response. Response bias is behavior of the respondent or interviewer influences how people respond. So by asking questions, if you ask people how much money they make, and instead of just recording what it is, it's like, really? Is that really how much you make? Or giving people comments and influencing how they're going to answer the question is what is response bias. And also the wording of questions can influence the answers given. How you word the question can change how people respond, and we're actually going to do a project on that very soon, where you are going to purposefully be doing that and changing the question to get people to answer in a different way. Okay. So example 6, consider example 1 again. What kind of problem arises from AFA conducting a poll on its website, for example, on the topic of same-sex marriage? So this was a conservative website, and so if you're doing a topic of same-sex marriage, what could go wrong? Okay. So for this, most likely the main thing that could go wrong is under coverage. Okay, and the thing that's going to happen with that, under coverage, because only people who are going to visit this website are going to have the opportunity to take the poll. Other people don't know that there's this poll existing on their website. So they will most likely have strong opinions about same-sex marriage. And so again, it's just the people who visit that website are going to be taking the survey. So you're leaving the other people out, other people who may have different opinions. So only people who visit that website will respond to the poll, not just the general population. Example 7, consider example 2 again. What kind of problems arise from conducting a survey at the mall, for example, on the effects of the economy? So the effects of the economy, what's going to happen when you're taking that survey at the mall? Okay, so it's a convenient sample. It's not really a good way to take a sample in the first place. But what happens if people are already at the mall? Do you think the economy is affecting them drastically? Most likely not. They're still able to go shopping at the mall. They're still able to afford to go there. So in asking them about the effects of the economy is not going to be representative of how everybody feels. So if it's not going to be representative of how everybody is being affected by the economy, we're leaving people out of that sample. And so that is going to be under coverage. Because people who are really feeling the effects of the economy most likely will not be at the mall. So because they're not at the mall, they're going to be left out of the survey and you may not get the results you're expecting. Okay, example 8. See if you and someone next to you can come up with a question where if you word a question a certain way, it may influence someone's answer. For example, consider 2 questions. Do you watch cartoons? And do you still watch cartoons? So see if you can, you don't have a neighbor here, but see if you can think of something where you can just restate a question to influence how people are going to respond. So this is a topic that you're going to be covering for a project, and there's a few posters in the classroom where you can see examples of what students did last year. And one of the questions, there's a few really good ones that they did last year. One of them was, the question was, do you think cheerleaders are annoying at the football game? Okay, so that's what some groups decided to tackle. And the girls who did that were actually cheerleaders. So they went and asked students, well, at least some of the group was cheerleaders, dressed in their cheerleading uniforms, went around and asked people if they thought cheerleaders were annoying at football games, thinking that that is going to influence how they responded. So they didn't just change the question or influence it, I guess, by their dress. They were influencing how people would respond. And so dressed in their uniforms, less people said that they were annoying versus when other people in the group who were not cheerleaders went around and asked people if they thought cheerleaders were annoying at the football games, more people responded as yes. So their attire and who was asking the question was influencing the way people responded. So that's one type of response bias. Okay, so that wasn't just changing the question, but still influencing how people responded. Okay, so moving on, stratified random sampling and cluster sampling both use chance to minimize bias in the sample. It does not eliminate bias, but it does control for systematic bias. And the larger random samples give more accurate results than smaller samples. So you can't always just take a really large sample, though. Sometimes when you have too much information, you're not able to sort through it in an efficient manner. And so we'll talk about in the future, like next semester, what size samples you really need to take to get good results when we start analyzing the data you would collect from surveys. Right now, we're just in the process of figuring out how to collect surveys and take a survey. Okay, so the next page, example 9. Anthony DeLuca lives in a high-rise cooperative apartment complex with 30 floors and 20 apartments on each floor. The board of the Homeowners Association wants to sample the opinions of its members on the possibility of switching to a new management service. They ask Anthony to take a sample of 60 homeowners. Give examples of how Anthony could take each type of sample discussed so far and describe the weaknesses and strengths of each. Okay, so we're going to look at a voluntary sample, a convenient sample, a simple random sample, and a stratified random sample. And in general, the two that we're going to want to use when you go out and actually collect data or when you're designing how you would do this are going to be the simple random sample and the stratified random sample. So voluntary and convenience are not usually good strategies, but we're going to describe what that would look like in this situation. Okay, so he has an apartment complex, 30 floors, 20 apartments on each floor. So it's a lot of people, high-rise apartment, most likely in a city is where those type of large apartment buildings would be. So voluntary Um, Most likely, he could actually go around and talk to people, but the best idea for this would be to probably just leave a survey in the lobby or something like put a survey in everybody's mailbox. And if they want to participate or return the survey, they choose or voluntarily become part of the survey by doing that, by filling it out. Okay, so I'd say an example of this is to leave the survey in the lobby or in people's mailboxes. A strength of that, are there any perks to doing that for him actually carrying out the survey? Most likely one of the things, it's easy, it's convenient, it doesn't take a lot of his time. Okay, so that's probably one of the biggest things. What are going to be the weaknesses of just asking people to respond to a survey about an apartment or how they're feeling about the homeowners association? Sorry, not about the homeowners association, but switching to a new management service is what he's asking. Most likely, the weakness that's going to happen here is that people who feel strongly one way or the other are going to respond. So people who are either very happy with the current management service would respond, or people who have complaints, people who don't like it, something's gone wrong, something wasn't fixed in their apartment, and they want to let people know about it. Most likely the people in between aren't necessarily going to take the time to fill out a survey. Okay, that's just kind of how it works. So I would say the weakness, people who have complaints will most likely be volunteering their information. Because they want to voice their unhappiness. Okay, so they want to let people know how they're feeling. So when you end up looking at the results, it might seem that the current management service isn't doing a good job, but it could be just because you only got information from a certain crowd.